Hey guys, it is Targon doing another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today I'm on my alt account that I don't really use very much because today I'm going to talk about early game clan boss. All right, so I actually had a request from someone to do a video on early game clan boss, and I've been meaning to do that for a while. So I figured I'll show you on this account. Um, Honestly, I could be higher up on here if I took the time to like really get my very best of gear. But I want to just talk to you about just the thought process behind how to engage in a clan boss fight. Okay, so let me just kind of go ahead and show you. So this is the team. So versus clan boss, there's a few key things that you're going to need. One is you're going to need some way to keep your team healed. Not necessarily reviving, but just some way that you're regaining health, because over time, clan boss is just going to wear you down, wear you down, wear you down, and if you don't have any type of healing, you're not going to last very long. So having some form of healing is great. So like if you have Scylla the Drakes, she's great. If you have Doom Priest, Doom Priest is great. On this account, I was using Vrask for a while because he's got a nifty thing where he crits, he heals everybody. This is where Ultimate Death Knight, again, coming in handy for the win with the clan boss because he's got the, sorry, not that one, the continuous heals. So on this account, I actually booked my Ultimate Death Knight. Because I didn't really have much in terms of legendaries. I think I pulled Tyrant afterwards, but even so, I'm excited to actually try using Ultimate Death Knight a little bit more. So bringing in some type of healing is amazing. Shields are also amazing, so Ultimate Death Knight again is a great option. So the buffs I'm looking for, or the things that I'm using to keep my team alive rather, are going to be healing and shields, especially early on. Those are the two most important, I would say, early on. Block debuffs is also really important. Increased defense can also be really important. Both of those are going to really help keep you alive. If you if everybody in your team plays a critical role, you're going to want someone to either block the debuffs or cleanse the debuffs. That way, nobody's suffering from the stun. But honestly, I have found, for me personally, early on, it's better to just forget about the stun. Whoever takes the stun, they get stunned, they lose a turn. Not the end of the world. I'd rather have damage dealers and healers and buffers and just try and keep going as quickly as I can. Once you get later on, block debuffs or cleansing becomes pretty essential to having solid runs on Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare. But for early on, I'd say you don't necessarily have to worry about it. All right, so those are the things that I want for my team the most: healing, shields, block debuffs, increased defense. So look for champions that have that ability. Okay, counterattack also is really great if you've got it. Unfortunately, there's only like 3 champions in game that do it on your team. I have one of them, which is Skull Crusher, which is amazing. But counterattack is very difficult to get. All right. So now, in terms of what I want to bring to the fight, in terms of debuffs, I would say early on, especially, the most important debuff you can bring is decrease attack. That's going to minimize the overall damage of the clan boss and let you stay alive a lot longer. Okay. Very early on, poisons can be actually the best way to deal out damage, but in general, I'd rather go with decreased defense, because that way I'm doing more damage every time I hit the clan boss. So decrease attack, decrease defense. After that would be things like poison, HP burn, weaken, also kind of right up there. Not quite as important as decreased defense, but it's up there. And that, again, so weaken's going to increase the amount of damage that I do every single time I hit. But poisons are also really great early on because they do a set amount, and in general, that's going to be more than what your champions are able to do early on. So So early game, what you want to do is you want to look for champions that bring that. So, for example, I'm going to be using Scylla of the Drakes. She has her passive that's healing everybody by 10% of her max HP. Like I said, I'm also bringing in Ultimate Death Knight. He has his shield. He has a continuous heal. He also brings a decreased attack. Okay, so guys, Ultimate Death Knight is a beast. If you're getting him early game, I highly recommend considering. If you don't have any other good legendary champions, it might be worth booking him. On this account, I went ahead and booked him over Syl. I wouldn't really recommend that, but I chose to do that for this account just for playtests like this to kind of see how good's he going to be. And I think actually it's worth considering if you're early game, booking him over Syl of the Drakes if you don't have a way to beat Nightmare Clan Boss yet. Because I think he's more of a Clan Boss champion than Syl is. And so having him booked is really going to help your Clan Boss team considerably. Okay? So I'm bringing him in. So shield, heals, decrease attack. I'm going to go with Thylissia because she has a decreased defense. It's a 100%. It places it. It's great. And then she can increase the duration of all debuffs. If you have a champion that has this move, this is really, really helpful because, you know, I can get, you know, the decreased defense on, decreased attack on, and then I can just have her increase it all, right? So that's going to be really, really useful. I am going to use Skull Crusher as well for the counterattack. He also brings Ally Protect, which is another good buff. It does decrease the amount of damage that the rest of the team takes. However, you want to make sure that your champion that has this is going to be healing up fairly consistently. So I think I got, what, I have him in Lifesteal? Yeah, I got him in Lifesteal. Because you want to make sure that because every time there's an AoE, right, he's soaking up a portion of all that damage, so he's got to keep healing up. All right. So yeah, we're going to go with him. We're going to go with Ultimate Death Knight, Thylissia. We're going to go Syl, and then we are going to go with Kayle, because Kayle is a great poisoner. He's not top tier, but early on, guys, if you got him as your starter champion, the reason I like going with him as my starter is for Clan Boss. He's great for farming campaign early on, but all the starter champions can do that. Some of the starter champions have other uses that might be a little bit more useful in different areas, but I'd say Kayle for Clan Boss is great because he's got this little 4 attack here that's got a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison. And then his A1 places a 2.5, which isn't great, but early on that's really going to help, especially since I'm going with a counterattack champion. All right? So another thing you can do if you're worried about your champions staying alive is you can run them in Lifesteal, which is what I'm doing. So Kayle has Lifesteal. Thylissia has Lifesteal. Like I mentioned, Skull Crusher's got Lifesteal. Syl and Ultimate Death Knight. I put Ultimate Death Knight in Lifesteal as well because he's also going to be soaking up damage. So I've got everybody in Lifesteal except for Syl of the Drakes. And Syl of the Drakes, what can I say? She's an amazing champion. She's got plenty of defense, great base stats. She's healing anyways because of her passive, so you don't necessarily need it. Another potential option, just so you can think about it, is for healing. If you have a champion like Deacon, who can put on a leech debuff on the clan boss, that can also help because then your champions are healing as they attack. So another potential way that you can bring healing without necessarily going with someone who does like a continuous heal or Syl of the Drakes type of thing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here. So I'm kind of at this point where I'm just looking at hard, except hard, I got a few weak affinity champs here. So let me go ahead. I'll just do, I can't quite do, let's try, we'll try Brutal. We'll try Brutal here. Let's see how we do. So I'm going to run Ultimate Death Knight as the lead because he brings the increased defense aura, which is also going to be really helpful keeping the team alive. I don't have increased defense, so this is kind of making up for that. And early on, I'll usually just, manual through it because the battle's not necessarily going to last all that long, but you can go ahead and throw auto on if you want to give it a shot. Let's start. I'm going to put the decrease attack on because now Thalicia is going to increase the duration. And so this way that's going to kind of sync up. And now I'm going to let it go on. Actually, wait. I'm going to have Ultimate Death Knight put his shield up before the AoEs. So this is how I would recommend using Ultimate Death Knight and his shield. Oh, he's the one. I forgot that little piece. I forgot he was going to be taking the stun. Oh well. He's probably the best suited champion to take the stun anyways. What I was going to say is you can, if you have it on a 3-turn cooldown, you can have him put the shield up for both of the AoEs, and that way you're minimizing the overall damage that you're taking. But since he's taking the stun, he won't be able to do that. That's where if I had Doom Priest, if I ran Doom Priest in place of Syl, that would probably be much better because Doom Priest cleanses the debuffs. So like these poisons, for example, would be getting cleansed off. The stun would be getting cleansed off. Doom Priest is a really, really useful champion. And you can kind of time your speeds to make it so Doom Priest is going right after the boss. And that way she's cleansing off all the debuffs. So whoever takes the stun, even if it's Doom Priest, isn't going to lose their turn. But yeah, so this team is not really hitting all that hard. I'm a little bit slow for Brutal. Really, like I said, I've been hitting more hard. But you want to try and get to Brutal, as soon as possible. Ideally, you want to try and work your way up to Nightmare. And so having this kind of a team makes that possible. Just because there's shields, there's ally protect, there's the counterattacks. I don't really have many masteries on champions on this account yet, just because I don't really use it a whole lot. Like I'll occasionally do auto battles and so forth, but for the most part, I kind of just log in and say hi and maybe do a clan boss run or two, and then that's kind of it usually. So my account is this account is lacking in terms of gear. It's lacking in terms of masteries. It's really lacking in terms of books at the moment, but that's why we want to hit Clan Boss, because Clan Boss is going to help us to get the books. So in hindsight, I probably should have run someone else in the leadership role than Ultimate Death Knight, but I think he would actually end up taking the stun anyway, as I think about it, because his passive would kick in. Another thing that you can do that's going to really help your champions is if you get the Life Drinker Mastery. That really helps out because then once your HP gets below 50%, all your attacks you're healing. All right, so that's not a particularly great run that I would want to do, but hey, it is what it is. And so this is the team. Let me go over just a few champions that I highly recommend. If you're really early on, you can run Apothecary. Apothecary is actually a great overall champion. on Clan Boss, because he's got a triple hitter, you could run like Giant Slayer Mastery on him if you were to get him all the way to tier 6. And that way you've got like 3 chances to proc that extra damage. Could be really good. But one of the reasons he's so good is he has this heal on a 2-turn cooldown. It's a 50% of the target's HP, and it can be critical. So if you build him with a little bit of crit rate, now we're talking it's fully healing somebody, right? So that's great. He's also increasing your speed. That's going to let you go that much faster. It's filling the turn meter, so it's just helping you move through faster and cycle through everything a lot faster. He is a great all-around champion. I use him mostly for things like dungeons or early game as my speed booster in arena, but he can be very good versus Clan Boss. Like I said, Ultimate Death Knight. Because this skill, the shield and continuous heal, is on a 3-turn cooldown, I like putting it up before the first AoE. That way the shield absorbs it, and then, when he does a second AoE, maybe there's a little shield left to absorb it. But either way, and there's the continuous heals. So that's this is just a top tier Clan Boss skill early on. So I do recommend using it when it's on a 5-turn cooldown, unbooked. Not necessarily as amazing, but it's still very good. And like I said, decreased attack is really helpful as well. The provoke on his A1 doesn't help at all, but his passive is also really good because he's going to help absorb damage from the stun. So if I was to run someone like, if I ran somebody else as the lead in that situation, the Clan Boss would have been attacking them, at least early on. So that way, Ultimate Death Knight would be soaking up some of that damage. Like I said, Thalicia is great. Another champion worth mentioning early on would be Lodric Falconheart, right? So if you don't have Ultimate Death Knight, or you don't have him booked, let's say, and you've got other people doing healing, you might be better suited going with Lodric Falconheart, especially if you can book his A3. It does a shield for 2 turns, and if it's fully booked, it's on a 2-turn cooldown. So that means every other turn he's putting up a shield. So you could have him be the fastest one on the team, and then you've got shields up the entire time. He also brings decreased attack on his A1. I highly recommend looking for champions that can do this, especially if you're not going to be going with Ultimate Death Knight. Look for champions that have decreased attack on the A1. When booked, it's a 60% chance. That means most of the time it's going to land, and it lasts for 2 turns. So the way he's going to work, he's going to put a shield up, decrease attack, chance. Shields up again, decrease attack. So he's going to be really good for helping keep your team alive. He also removes debuffs from one ally, so potentially if this is a 3-turn cooldown, you can time this so that it goes right after the stun, so he might be able to cleanse off whoever takes the stun. And it also puts an ally protect on that champion so that they don't take as much damage afterwards. All right, so overall, he's a very solid champion. Skull Crusher is a top tier epic for Clan Boss because of that counterattack. There's plenty of other champions that are like really great, but really like Farrakhan and Fane are both really great Clan Boss champions, but really they're better in a unkillable setup because they can be a little bit on the squishy side. If you're really looking to stay alive, you can look for other champions that do. So like Taregi has does the shield, he does ally protection, heals himself, he also spits out poisons. He can be a really good Clan Boss champion. He keeps your team alive and he puts poisons on, so that's great. Nazana, I used her early on my main account. Actually, she was like one of the first epic champions that I pulled. And she's got the decrease attack, which is important. She's also got an ally protect, and she puts a shield on herself when she does this, so that is very helpful. Her A1 doesn't really do much, so she's not really a great champion, but she can work. Vergis also, again, he puts continuous heals, on somebody else. He puts ally protect on everybody and decreased defense or increased defense on everyone, so that's really good. His passive keeps him alive, especially great since he's soaking up all that damage. So he is an option. Let me just show you some of my top epics. So we'll start out. Where is so Doom Priest? Doom Priest is a top tier epic, not because of any of her active skills, but because of her passive. Now she does put increased attack, which is great, but really her passive almost heals as much as Syl, a little bit less, but it removes a random debuff at the start of the champion's turn. So if you can time it so she's going right after the clan boss, then she's cleansing the stun off, so nobody's losing their turn. So she's a top tier epic. Sepulchre Sentinel is another top tier epic. She brings, again, a 60% decrease attack chance, and she brings increased defense and block debuffs. Super useful. Both of those are really going to help keep your team alive. She also brings increased ally defense in all battles by 25%, and her passive, when booked, has a 50% chance to completely block incoming damage to an ally. So anytime there's the stun, there's a 50% chance to block all the damage. The debuff still goes on, but so she's really good. She is really good. Let me see, who else are we talking about? Epics. I'm gonna look at the non-void epics just because. And here I can't even think. I have them all on my. Oh. Another one of my favorites would be Melga Steelgirdle. She has that same thing, basically, that Ultimate Death Knight does, where she brings a shield and a continuous heal. And she has the opportunity to revive champions as well. And she also has a chance of removing a random debuff. This is not really very useful in terms of the removing the stun, but, it can help out a little bit. So Melga is a great epic champion to use for clan boss. Geomancer, if you have Geomancer, he's top tier amongst all champions, really, in terms of dealing damage because of his passive. Watch some other videos on that. I'm not going to go into it today. But if you have Geomancer, Geomancer is top tier. Early game, late game, if you're going unkillable, it's still great. Rearguard Sergeant is actually a really solid clan boss champion. I used her on my main account for a while on my original Ultra Nightmare team. She brings ally protect and continuous heals. I don't like that the continuous heal doesn't go on her too. That's just whatever. So you want to make sure that she's in either regen gear or lifesteal gear so that she's staying healed up. She does heal on this skill, so if you have her at, I would want to max out her crit rate so that way she's able to hit the critical on this, so she gets 25% of the damage inflicted, so that'll be really good. This skill, it puts the decrease attack on, which is, again, super useful. It's only a 75% chance to place, but super useful. And then also she brings a 50% chance of landing a decreased defense on her A1. So again, a top tier epic clan boss champion there. Grizzled Jarl also brings a lot to the fight here. He's got this decreased attack. He puts increased defense. He blocks debuffs for 1 turn, so you could run him where he goes last before the stun, and he'll just block that stun. And then you've got increased defense to start the next round. So between that and the decreased attack, he's really great champion. Let's see. I mean, there's plenty of other great champions that you can use. Feel free to look up some of the reviews, because the different champions are really good. Hatatsu could be a good option for a leech if you're looking to run a leech strategy. He's actually probably early game a very good clan boss champion because he's got a 60% chance of placing that leech, which is going to help keep your team healed. He also has the 70% chance of placing decreased attack which is, again, obviously really useful. And then he's going to place increased defense for 2 turns and brings a continuous heal on everybody. It's only for 1 turn, but it's still really helpful in terms of keeping your team topped off. So between that and the leech, he will help keep your team at full health a lot longer. And it removes a random debuff, but it won't remove the stun, so that won't work. But he brings increased defense in all battles aura. So again, between that and him bringing increased defense, he can be a really valuable clan boss champion. And I mean, there's others that you can use for sure, but those are some of the good ones. If you have Vogoth, Vogoth is a great healer. Top tier healer there, so might be worth building him out. Seeker can be great, especially if you're timing it right. But even he brings increased attack, and he's filling the turn meter. He's got the passive where if he's hit with a critical, he puts increased defense on everybody, which is kind of nice. Mostly he's there helping your team move faster. Let's see, who else do we have here? I'm just looking real quick. Duke, whatever. He can be really good. Again, he brings a decreased attack and decreased defense on 1 move, which is great. Those, again, are the 2 most important debuffs, I would say. Also has a chance to put decreased accuracy, which can reduce the chance of the clan boss's A2 landing a debuff on everybody. So especially if you're going up against Spirit Affinity, there's a chance that it kind of reduces the occurrence of the decreased speed. Sandlash Survivor is great, especially if you run a team that uses a lot of buffs, shields, continuous heals. So for example, if you're running, let's say, Ultimate Death Knight, you have him go first. He puts up his shield. He puts up his continuous heal. Those each go for 2 turns. And if you've booked him, it's a 3-turn cooldown. Well, if you book Sandlash Survivor, you can have her go second, and she decreases the duration of all buffs on the enemy, but increases the duration of all your buffs. So that 2-turn shield and continuous heal becomes a 3-turn shield and continuous heal. Her passive is also good, places Ally Protect whenever someone drops below 50%, which is really useful, and gives her block damage as well, so she's not taking up too much of that damage. And she's got an increased defense in all battles, so she can be a very, very good clan boss champion as well. Let's see. Razin Scarhide, he's not an epic, but you can fuse him. He is an amazing clan boss champion. Decreased defense and weaken. Also a triple hit on the A1 is nice. He can do some pretty serious damage, especially if you put Giant Slayer on him. Jareg is another really good clan boss champion. He brings Ally Protect. He brings increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. He brings a decrease attack on the A1. Let's see, it books up to a 60% chance, so that's solid. He puts a continuous heal whenever someone loses 20% of their max HP in 1 hit, which isn't amazing, but it's helpful. I wouldn't count on this being my main source of healing, though. Let's see, Skinwalkers, not really anybody there that I'm too thrilled with. Ogres, let's see. Ugo, she can be great. She does the decreased defense. She places the leech. She cleanses debuffs, so you could use her as your cleanser, potentially, although it is a 4-turn cooldown. And she also heals by a substantial amount there as well. So Ugo, she's amazing everywhere. She can be very useful in clan boss as well. Brawler is one of the top tier poisoners in game. Even on my main account, I still use him a fair amount for clan boss in my unkillable setup because He's got this 60% chance to place the poison debuff, but also his passive, a 70% chance on every turn to place a poison debuff. So, and it goes for 4 turns. So this just loads up the clan boss with tons and tons of poison. Honestly, I'd rather just turn his A2 off and just go with the A1 there. So you're just pumping the clan boss full of poisons. So he's a very, very good one. Urogrim, if you've got him, is amazing, but because he puts out poisons and he does continuous heals on your team. Let's see, Barbarians, not so much. Clan boss, I think Alina can be good. She brings a weaken and she brings decreased defense. So if you're looking for someone to bring those skills, she can be good and she can hit pretty hard as well. Farrakhan, like I mentioned, he's great. I think he can actually be good even in a regular setup because he brings the ally attack, which is great. Chance of placing HP burns and poison debuffs. So he's a really good champion. Has a chance to place decreased defense on the A1. So typically I see him used in unkillable setup, but he can be very good even in an early game killable team. Let's see. Sacred Order. Let's see. Juliana is actually a champion that I used early on in my main account. Got me up to Nightmare. I found that she actually does more damage than Kayle. So if you don't have another poisoner, she brings the HP burn, which is great. She also brings the poisons. Now this is a 5-turn cooldown, which is kind of a bummer. But she also has this chance to increase her turn meter so she can cycle through her abilities a little faster. I hope they buff her and give, like, reduce the cooldowns on these or something, because then she'd be really good. Aethor is another great clan boss champion. 4 times at random, each hit places 5% poison debuff, so that's a top tier skill. Also brings increased attack to everybody. The rest of his kit is not really going to be very useful for you. Sanguina, great champion. She is, let's see, she removes all debuffs, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown, unfortunately, so you'd have to, you know, kind of run her at a really high speed in order to cleanse the stun with her, but you could potentially do it. Let's see, anybody else in here? Deacon Armstrong, like I mentioned, he can be great because he brings the leech. He also brings decreased defense, and he also brings the speed aura as well. High elves, not really. Tayrell. Tayrell is a great champion. He brings the decreased defense here. Also brings decreased attack on the A1. And his is interesting because it's a 2-hitter, and each hit has, when booked, a 50% chance of placing decreased attack. So really, he's kind of the best one to do this, because everybody else, all the other epics that have that skill, the A1 decreased attack, it's a 60% chance, but it's only 1 hit. So I think you're better off going with him. And again, he also brings, when booked, it's a 100% chance to decrease defense, and he hits really hard as well. Look through Banner Lords real quick. I haven't tried all the champions, so if there's other champions that you like for clan boss, let me know. Stag Knight is amazing everywhere. He's great for clan boss simply because he does decrease defense and decrease attack. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions, like if you're not sure who to use on your team. I know I didn't cover the rares. There are some other rares really at that, really, really early on. What you want to do is you want to get your campaign farmer up there, and then, whatever decent epics and legendaries you get are going to just be the next ones that you pull, and you can just use them in clan boss. So, if you have questions with your particular team, feel free to post it below, and I'll try to get back to you on it when I get a chance. But early game, it's really just you're looking for those key things: decreased attack, decreased defense, healing, shields, maybe increased defense, maybe block debuffs, cleansing, right? And then you want to get some poisons and some of the high damage dealers out there as well to boost up your damage. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this was informative, and I will catch you at the next video.